There's a major story breaking from New York. Neil O'Dowd is editor of the Irish Vice. Neil, good afternoon to you.
Joe, how are you?
What's happening? It's the World Trade Center.
World Trade Center. We've had two planes crashed into the World Trade Center. One as little as 18 minutes ago, and caught live on television here, and absolutely horrendous, Joe. Just people are very scared about what's happened. Was it a terrorist incident? It's just some navigational problem that planes are, been dragged into this, or what's happening? Absolutely unbelievable.
So the World Trade Center, for people listening, is it the Twin Towers?
It's the Twin Towers.
So
yeah.
people will know it from their image of New York, of Manhattan.
Yes, it's right down at the very tip of Manhattan. It was a place where the terrorist bomb went off in the 1990s. If you remember that, with a number of casualties. This will be absolutely catastrophic because the city is. They've often said it's wide open to some kind of attack. If this is what it is, it certainly would be very, very frightening for people.
Did it hit the centre of the tower, the top of the tower, or?
Well, the first one obviously hit the top of the tower. The second one, which was just the most dramatic television pictures I've ever seen, the plane just seemed to go right around the far side of the tower and smack the one that hadn't been hit. So both of them have now been hit. And they're saying that the second one was big enough, or the first one was big enough to be a passenger plane. And that's really scary, some kind of commuter plane. The other thing is, obviously, these planes, if you've ever flown into New York, you'd always fly by the World Trade Center, if you're landing in LaGuardia in particular. So you'll often see it off to the left as you come in. But you always keep a very good distance from it, obviously. So, I mean, these planes should obviously not have been flying this close.
Any idea on casualties at this stage? Oh, it looks major, I say.
It looks dreadful. The only thing that may save it, Joe, is that it's early in the morning. There may not have been as many people.
What time is it there now? 10 past 8?
It's 10 past 9.
10 past 9.
And it happened about a year ago.
An hour ago.
An hour ago.
So at 8:30 a.m. New York time.
They may not have had the numbers, certainly not the numbers that they would have had, an hour later, no question about that. So it's...
and in terms of location in Manhattan and emergency services, because we now have the Twin Towers on fire, and it is, I'm sure, like something out of a movie. In terms of emergency services, how are they going to?
Well, I would say that this is very strange, but the emergency centre for New York is actually in the World Trade Center, so obviously that cannot be used. But I do think that after the bombing of the World Trade Center, they did implement an emergency plan that allows a very quick response. And even from my building here, Joe, and I'm up on the Upper East Side, I can see the smoke right across the horizon. I mean, this is unbelievable.
Are they the tallest buildings in Manhattan?
They are the tallest buildings. They surpassed the Empire State when they were built.
So therefore, they're among the tallest buildings in the world.
They're among the tallest buildings in the world. I think they're Chicago in the United States. Sears Tower in Chicago is the only taller one. But these are like absolute. It's a bit like the biggest symbol of the night sky in New York is the World Trade Center and the Empire State Building. Those are the two big ones that everybody looks at.
But for two planes to crash into it, Neil, is an amazing coincidence, or else is kamikaze, suicide bomber.
Well, this is what we're worried about, obviously, but it makes no sense. I mean, the first one you could probably say, because many years ago, Joe, a plane did crash into the Empire State Building back in the 1940s, and it was a pilot who got lost in a heavy fog around Manhattan at the time. But today is absolutely beautiful day. It's clear as a bell. You can see for miles. There's absolutely no reason why a plane, and particularly two planes, which is just insane.
And has there been? I know New York at the best of times is a cauldron in terms of different nationalities, but has there been any security alerts recently in Manhattan?
Not particularly. I mean, there's always been a fear, which was obviously resulting from the World Trade Center bombing before, when a lot of these Islamic militants warned that they would take revenge. But I mean, it's way too early to even speculate that they could have been responsible for this.
Because people were apprehended for the...
Yes, they were. They were put in jail, and there was a lot of threats at the time from Islamic groups. But I would stress that would be very unfair to say that this was something. I mean, listening to the the National Transportation Safety Board people, they're absolutely adamant no plane should have been in this area. It would be hard to imagine if one of the planes was a passenger plane that it would be a kamikaze. But they're saying it was large enough that it looked like a commuter plane. So I just can't imagine what would have happened here, Joe. It's the most incredible thing I think I've ever seen.
It's astonishing. It is astonishing. And the fact that it's such a clear day for a passenger plane surely would see.
Well, that's
Anyone flying over New York would be well used to that skyscape.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, it's one of the most breathtaking, but also one of the most familiar landscapes in the world. I mean, you fly down the Hudson River, you take a left at the bottom, not far from the World Trade Center, and you come up the other side of Manhattan and land in LaGuardia. It's a flight anyone from the south or Washington or anywhere like that would take. I've taken it 20 times already this year, probably, and every time you stay, obviously, very, very well clear of the skyscrapers. I've never, ever been in the plane that came anywhere within miles of that, but it would just be in the distance all the time. So,
and let alone for one plane to crash, for two to crash into, and one into each tower.
Yeah, I mean, that's...
astonishing. No word on casualties at this stage. It's only a few minutes ago.
No word on casualties. We're hearing that the President has been informed and that the Federal Security Services, the FBI and people like that are getting involved. There is a great fear that this was some kind of terrorist incident. Okay. So, I mean, from that point of view, I think that's probably just overwhelming for people in New York. Because
there has been a lot of criticism of the Bush government in particular over their support for Israel.
Yeah, but there certainly has, and you know, there have been...
Or rather, their inactivity as perceived by people in the Middle East.
I mean, there have been, you know, a lot of criticisms over the years of whatever American president and the Israeli policy, but you know, it's very early to say that this is connected to this. We know that now that the first aircraft flew from Westchester County, which is north of Manhattan. It's a kind of a residential area. If it took off from Westchester Airport, that would be only about 30 miles from Manhattan. So it would have been coming north. It would have been coming south, rather. It would have been coming from the north, going south. The classic route, as I said, swinging around the World Trade Center, up the east side of Manhattan and into LaGuardia. But obviously, something incredible happened. Now, one of the people said there may be some kind of navigational, problem. But I mean, surely, just with his eyesight, the pilot would have seen that he was too close.
Okay, from what you say, I mean, no, there's no point in speculating. It's tragic for everyone. Tragic now for anyone living in New York, and anyone especially in the World Trade Center or below it at this stage, and the emergency services have to deal with that and try and put out that. But was it deliberate or was it an accident? I'm sure. It would sound to me like being deliberate. I mean, just.
Yeah, the element.
But that doesn't.
When the World Trade Center was bombed, the attempt was to actually literally knock one of the towers into the other and cause massive damages and fatalities. This is very, very close to Wall Street, for instance. So there may have been an attempt to do that again. This may have been an attempt to knock both World Trade Center towers, which would have caused just horrendous deaths at the time of the last explosion.
And who were the group who were the faction that were actually convicted for that first bombing? Do you remember? They were an Islamic group, were they not?
I believe they were Islamic Jihad. Yeah, I believe the head guy was a guy from Pakistan, and there was a number of people who they actually are. Hang on. There's a word now of a possible plane hijacking. The plane was hijacked before the crashes.
Oh, good God.
So this is obviously, Joe, a suicide bomber if it was hijacked before the crash. So this is... And
is there a suggestion, I know you're picking up there as quick as you can, but is it a suggestion that was a passenger plane that was hijacked?
They're saying, FBI officials are saying that... They haven't determined whether it's a terrorist act, but AP is reporting that the first plane was hijacked. So I mean, I think the Islamic kind of scenario probably moves up the list of possibilities if that is the case. Having said that, I mean, Oklahoma City, everybody was blaming the Islamic fundamentalists, and it turned out to be a white American with a grudge against the So.
Okay, Neil. We'll keep in touch with that. I appreciate your call. That's breaking news from New York. The Twin Towers in the World Trade Center, each one individually has been hit by a plane within the last half hour, and both of them are from, I think there are 100 stories, 110 stories high. Both of them are now burning, and the latest report is that the plane was hijacked, and there's speculation whether the act was deliberate or not. It is now 9:20 in the morning in New York, rush hour, so we'll have more, and indeed every programme on RT and way beyond. We'll have more on that as it develops. Neil O'Dowd, thanks indeed. Thanks
Thank you.
indeed. Thank you.
Okay, bye now.
And terrible that you have to bring us such news.